Hi, good afternoon, Divyaman. Let's just wait for 3 more minutes and then we'll start.
Yeah, sure, absolutely. Yeah.
Hi, welcome everyone. So let me just introduce myself first of all, and thank you for joining us for this webinar. So my name is Soumya Saxena, and I am a part of the subject matter expert team at Hero Wired. And currently, I'm the subject matter expert for the data science vertical, and I will be your host for today. So I will just start this webinar by telling you a little bit about Hero Wired, right? So Hero Wired is basically a virtual education company, which is the part of the Hero Group, and we are on a mission to not only reimagine the way you learn, but also to build a better and brighter future. We are here to equip our learners with the knowledge, skills, and expertise they would need to find success in their careers. And today we would be presenting a webinar on the topic Careers in Artificial Intelligence, which would be led by Deepyaman Sanyal. A few things about Divyaman. So he is PhD in economics and having 15 plus years of experience. And he is among the 40 under 40 data scientists of 2019 in India, and also the leading data science academicians in India in 2018 and 2019. So welcome, Divyaman.
All right, thanks, Soumya. Thank you for the very kind introduction.
One more thing, guys, before moving on. If you have any questions during the session, please free to type them in the Q&A section and not in the chat box so that your questions do not get skipped. And without any further delay, over to you, Divyaman.
All right, Soumya, thank you so much. And welcome everyone to the webinar. Soumya briefly talked about what Hero Wired is doing. I'll talk about the programs more than the organization, because I mean everybody in India knows who the Hero Group is. So I don't think I should spend too much time on presenting who they are. But I'll talk about AI, I'll talk about machine learning and data science, and I'll talk about careers. I've been doing this thing. I mean, now, there are a lot of these terms which have come to vogue, but when we started in the field, not 15, I mean, it is 15 plus, but it's close to 20 years back. I started my first job in 2003. So back then, I mean, the term data science didn't really exist, right? There was machine learning though, and there was AI, but AI was very limited to traditional neural networks, right? Multi-layered perceptrons and things like that. But anyway, I mean, we have come a long way in the last 2 decades. I'm going to talk a little bit about that. And I have a presentation and I'm going to present from that. But the idea is, if I just present from a presentation, then you could have just heard a recording, right? I mean, what's the point of hearing, someone live? The idea is to definitely have questions, comments, anything that you would want to talk about careers, about the Hero Wired programs, about machine learning, about artificial intelligence. The whole point about doing this with the IIT Alumni Association is that we have a free and open dialogue, right? As opposed to me coming in and reading stuff out from a presentation. Anybody could have done that, right? So why get me to do this? So I'm gonna talk about the marketplace, the AI marketplace right now, what's going on. I mean, saying that AI is hot is is kind of an understatement. We also know that there are a lot of AI ML jobs that have been lost over the past few months, right? So that's a concern which people are thinking about. So I will talk a little bit, and if you have any questions about that, I'm happy to talk more about what sort of jobs are coming up versus what sort of jobs are getting redundant, right? That's a very interesting subject. As I said, I've been doing this for 20 years in different parts of the world. I run a consulting firm where we work with clients in different parts of the world, including a lot in India, but a lot from different other countries. And that, I mean, because I work across industries, it gives me a little bit of a ringside view, right, as a consultant, to see that what's going on, like what are insurance companies doing, what are e-commerce firms doing, what's the government doing. I've extensively worked with governments and government agencies, so I'll try to bring that right in today's discussion. And again, therefore, if you have any questions related to, I mean, I wouldn't claim that I work in every domain, but I have worked in quite a few of them, right? And very different types of organizations. So happy to answer any questions. So let me begin with the presentation. I'm going to just share my screen, and we'll at any given point of time, if you have a question, feel free to stop me, right? Do not think that you need to wait till the end. Of course, at the end, you'll probably have a little bit more clarity, so you might have more questions. But at any given point of time, there's a Q&A section in Zoom. That's the best place to just go ahead and type your question in there, and I'll just pick it up, as and when those come up, right? Okay. Let me go back to the screen. Can you all see my screen? Can you see the presentation that that I have on screen? Is that visible? Okay, let me see the chat box. Chat box says yes. Fantastic. All right, great. As long as it's visible, that's good. Briefly about Hero Group, I'm gonna spend like not more than 30 seconds on this, because as I said, everybody in India knows who they are, and what they do. They've been around from Hero Group has been around from 1956. BML Munjal, who's the founder, and his brothers, they kind of built this organization up from scratch. And today it's a $5 billion plus diversified conglomerate, right, working in different kinds of industries. Of course, I think the Motor Corp is probably the best known part of the group, which everybody has heard of, like the motorbike and then the bicycle and things like that. But a lot of other stuff that the group does, which includes education. And they've been in education for a long time as well, doing primary and higher, primary and secondary education through a chain of schools. There's been significant impact from those. But even in higher education, the group was one of the founding members of arguably one of the best management schools in the country, ISB, right? The BML Munjal University was started by Akshay, who's the CEO of Hero Wired, and named after his grandfather, who's the founder of the group, and the Medical College and Hospital in Ludhiana. So the group has been doing different sorts of things in education for a fair bit. And with Wired, which was started a couple of years ago, I think the big intent, and Soumya mentioned it in passing as well, the big intent was that, hey, as a country, if you think about the education system, often, right, there are two issues that we face a lot. One is that the disconnect between the academy, right, and the industry. Yes, this is something that has been discussed to no end, so I'm not going to go into that. But that's not just true for India, by the way, right? That's true globally. I think it's definitely something that we need to improve upon. As simple as that. We need to get better at it. The other part is that, and that a lot of education that we are providing, right, is available physically in certain spaces. Yes, I mean, growing up in a big city, for me, it was easy to get a certain type of education, certain type of access, etc., which is difficult for everybody else, right? And the whole problem of underemployment, I think that's the big one. We produce such fantastic engineers, students of the pure sciences, applied sciences, but if you see the work that they do, right, at the end of their degree, it just is sometimes extremely surprising that somebody got that quality of education, right, but they're working on something that is unfortunate in some ways, right? So we are not probably utilizing or being able to utilize the talent in this country very well. Yes, and that was what the inception of Wired was. Why should you choose Wired? I'm going to come back to this, right? Because we do a lot of things somewhat differently than many other online training organizations. Again, I'm not saying that others are not doing good work at all. There are a lot of very good online training programs. Some of them are doing fantastically. Some of them are doing terrible stuff. I'm not going to comment on that, but we are definitely doing certain things in a certain manner, which we strongly believe works out quite well, right, for our learners and our potential learners. And I'm going to come back to this slide to discuss that in more detail. Yes. I'm going to start off by talking about careers. Right? What is it that we have today? And we know that in terms of recruitment, India now has become the second highest in terms of the number of people being recruited in a data science ML/AI role, right? So after the United States, this was not the case. But the number of folks in the AI, ML, data science profession, business analytics profession has been increasing significantly, quite exponentially actually in the last few years. And today we are number 2 in the world in terms of this, the number of people working in this industry. And even then, thousands and thousands of people are getting trained and graduating with degrees and diplomas and certificates. Even then, the prediction is that there'll be 11 million job openings by 2026, and we won't even have close to that amount of talent to fill up those job openings, right? The changes that were happening, it just got really sped up by the pandemic. I mean, nothing earth-shattering happened in terms of technology. Certain developments, of course, I mean, everybody's talking about Chat GPT and whatever, not good stuff, but it has been around. Like, developments have been happening. It's not like suddenly it came up. What did happen in the pandemic was digital transformation instead, right? It's not like technology changed overnight. It's just that, organizations started moving digitally, right? They started moving towards the digital first, or, so many changes that happened. Whereas the amount of data that started getting created, this is kind of the second boom that happened in data creation. Yes, the first boom was when The first big boom was, of course, like the internet and so on. Second big boom was when there was social media. Without social media, many of us wouldn't have a job, right? Um, because most of the stuff that we analyze, or a lot of people in this industry analyze, not me in particular, but it's social media data. Yes, and now we saw this third boom in terms of the amount of time being spent online through a variety of media, including work time. Right? Because previously it was very clear that people spend non-work time or snippets of work time on social media, on doing things online, etc. They're still online when they're working, but it's a collaborative, like they're in Microsoft Teams doing stuff together, they're in Excel, this, that. But that the work time will also move online. Yes, completely. That's the change that happened in the last couple of years. So we just ended up getting even more data. Right? Now, even more data means need for even more people to work on that data, to make sense of the data, because data itself tells you nothing, right? I mean, I can have terabytes of data sitting with me, but it'll completely be useless unless I have someone who can actually sit and analyze the data and tell me something valuable about it. Yeah. And therefore, this 11 million jobs, or whatever be that number, right? It might be 11 million, and might land up being 15 million. The point is, if you have studied or read about basic economics, right? Economics 101, you'd see that there's a huge demand and supply imbalance in the industry, right? I've been seeing this for a decade now. I see this a lot even today. 10 years back, I started the analytics program at IMT Ghaziabad. They're an MBA college based in Ghaziabad. I used to teach there, and I started their MBA program in analytics. They didn't have one. I started it. That was exactly a decade back. And at that point, from then, right, those students of mine versus where we are today, it's exponential what has happened to that change. It's unbelievable. Yes, the number of job openings for every valuable data scientist, machine learning engineer, AI engineer has just shot through the roof. Okay. Now there are different kinds of roles, and there's a reason why I'm mentioning this. There are data analyst roles where your primary job is to analyze streams of data. Yes. There are business analyst roles where you do similar things. You learn a lot of similar technologies, but you kind of start from a business problem as opposed to starting from a data set. Yes. And then there are core data scientist roles or ML engineer roles. And then, of course, with a little bit more experience, the data and analytics manager roles, right? There are a lot of managerial positions that are open today, because as the data science teams, as the ML teams become larger and larger, the industry needs more and more managers. And that's, again, another area where there are not enough people. When folks ask me that, hey, I've been managing an operations team in IT for 3 years, 5 years, I have 10 years of experience, what does it take to break into data science? Well, you have already won half the battle by having the ability to manage technologists, right? The other half of the battle is learning what kind of technology data science requires or ML requires, and you're there, right, the entire way. Okay. So we can, and again, I'm sure there'll be questions about this, so we can talk about more. Broadly, based on our charting out of the job roles in this vertical, we broadly see 3 paths, right, to glory, if you will, right, in this area. Again, there are a lot of people who get to the same place through different journeys. These are usually the most common journeys that I have come across, having taught a few thousand students over the last decade and worked with, probably 50 clients over the last decade, last 2 decades, right? So this is generally the journey, all right? One of the other things that some of my colleagues and I did was we analyzed, close to 3 million job listings data, okay? Out of which about 100,000 plus were, a few 100,000 were in the IT domain, and about 100,000 were in the data science and AI domain. And we did a lot of research on that. Again, we're building something out, very early days, but we did a lot of research on that. And some of the things that I'll talk about during this presentation will kind of stem from our research on tons and tons of job listings, right? So the standard career path, right, that we are looking at right now is you get a relevant certification. Again, that might be a wired certification, or that might be anything else. Doesn't matter, right? There is one path which is going through the junior data analyst, right? So you start off by analyzing data, you become a data analyst, you move towards the data engineering, big data engineering side, and then a lot of them can continue in the data engineering pathway, right? And again, data engineering is also a very, very popular job role right now. A lot of them want to move into the data science machine learning pathway. So they move from being a data engineer, big data engineer, into data science, and then grow within the data science ML domain. There are some folks who are probably more mathematically conditioned, right? Where they go from having this kind of a certification and doing the right kind of certification, which is of course super important. I'll talk about some of ours, and move into a junior data scientist role. All right. In the ML AI world, the junior data scientist role, if you want to break into that directly, requires certain things. Again, necessary conditions, not sufficient of in many cases. So that's not that you check a few boxes and you get that job, but there is a path, yes, which I'll talk about. And then you move to a data scientist and so on and so forth. And then there's the business analyst roles, right? You go from a junior business analyst to a business analyst, move towards a business analytics architect or data architect, and then move back into a data scientist role. Yes. Now, this is the standard progression. Again, do people have different progressions? Of course they do, right? Do the titles vary? They vary a lot, right? Somebody who's called a junior data scientist or is a junior data scientist in an e-commerce firm, their friend in investment bank might be called a junior risk analyst or just a risk analyst, or somebody in HR might be might be a junior whatever HR manager, but doing data work, right? Because there's a tons of HR work which is now completely data centered, right? Use a lot of predictive modeling in HR nowadays. But this is kind of the big three buckets, if you will. And when we talk about money, right? How much are people making? This is broadly what the numbers look like. What's interesting to me here, and what I would keep telling my students about as well. Sorry, I'm just trying to go back. Is the big jump, right? That you see from a 1 to 4 year, right, to a 5 to 9 year. Okay, and this is to me very critically important. Yes. Now, if you look at the early experience guys, right, 0 to 1 year, 2 years, whatever, and this is just average. A lot of people make significantly more than this. Some people, of course, make less than this. You will see that the delta between what a data scientist earns or an ML professional earns with an IT professional is not very large. Okay, right? It's there, of course. I mean, and again, there are a lot of folks who are starting off in the ML AI world making much larger numbers, right? But the delta between what they would have received as salary if they were working in a technology company versus working in MLAI, the delta is not very large in the early years. What starts changing in the third, fourth, fifth, sixth year, especially, right? When you go from that 3+, yes, the big change that happens is that within data science, within ML, you get a domain. You become a domain expert of sorts. Yes, because the thing is with data science is that the whole space is you learn a lot of things which are extremely fungible. What does fungible mean? That you can use the same algorithms that you use in marketing at Facebook, right? That who's going to click on my ad. You can use the same algorithm to guess with fairly high degree of correctness that who's going to leave a job. Right? So it's the same algorithm, same kind of problem mathematically, but the domain is very different. So what happens is in that 4 to 5 years, that's where you become like a domain expert as well. And that's where the demand for a data science professional really starts spiking up. Okay. And then, of course, I mean, 10, 12 years, these numbers to me look fairly low. My friends who are in the industry with 15, 17, 20 years of experience make about at least 3x the numbers that you see at the 10, 12-year level. But again, they're fairly successful folks. So I'm not saying that everybody makes that kind of money. Some people do, some people don't. All right. I'm going to talk briefly about what we do for Acquired for each one of these career paths. And then I'm going to open it up for questions. So I'm going to talk about 3 programs that we have, right, which kind of align somewhat, again, not perfectly, to the 3 career paths that you saw in the earlier slides, right? So we run a program called the Integrated Program in Data Science, Machine Learning, and Artificial Intelligence, IDMA for short. And this is run with, in partnership, in collaboration with the Massachusetts Institute of Technology. I read out the whole name because somebody seriously asked me that which MIT, and there are apparently some MITs in India as well. I didn't know that. Okay, my ignorance. So I said I thought there was only one MIT because who would want that name, right? But there are apparently other MITs. I mean, in different parts of the world. But this is with the one in Boston, Cambridge actually. Cambridge, Massachusetts, and this Massachusetts Institute of Technology. It's an 11-month program with about 700 hours of learning. So as you can understand, it's extremely rigorous. It's 70 to 90% live instructor-led, okay? And most of our instructors, I'll talk a little bit about faculty, but most of our faculty members are folks who have spent time in the industry, who have actually used these kind of algorithms to make decisions, lead teams, and so on and so forth. Yeah, we have deep industry connects. Of course, we are part of an industrial house, and we have deep connects within the industry. And you'll see that with the faculty, with the mini projects that we run, and the capstone projects that we run. And of course, we have a career services team. I'll talk about it a little bit more later as well, run by our colleague Ankur Sodhi, who does an absolutely fantastic job, right? And I'm super impressed with personal branding, and it's a placement assurance program with guaranteed job opportunities. So the whole personal branding, resume writing, this, that, interview prep. I mean, it's extremely it's done very well, right? I found it. I mean, I've seen some of the career coaching stuff that the team does, and I found it extremely impressive. The IDMA program, as you will see from the program curriculum, is fairly technically rigorous, right? The expectation is that somebody coming into the IDMA program is extremely comfortable with numbers and mathematics. If you're not, then, because this is, if you remember, the central path, right? Going directly from doing the certification to a junior data scientist role, this is basically that path, right? So unless you feel that you're extremely comfortable, doing at least doing linear algebra, right, and some level of probability theory, we have had students before, right, who did not come from a very mathsy background, and they have been able to clear the program. So I wouldn't say that it's impossible. I would just say that it's going to be harder, much harder, if you are not comfortable with mathematics if you come into this program. Yeah. And again, our collaborators in this program is an institution, is an university which is known for running fairly difficult programs, right? It's part of their spiel, if you will. So MIT runs difficult programs, such as, right? So this is the program curriculum. You start with data analysis with Python. You learn Python very well because that's your kind of coding tool language. You learn ML mathematics, then you learn predictive modeling and machine learning. In the next module, you learn ML with Python. This is from linear models to deep learning. So as you can see, this is quite a bit of stuff that you'll cover, the 4-month module from MIT. Then you learn the basics of statistics, go into the foundations, and then end with deep learning. So it's a very focused, a lot of ML, a lot of deep learning and AI, yeah, and a lot of underlying underlying numbers and formula and things like that, which we will need to kind of to straight in jump into doing certain types of data science. Yeah. All right, the highlights, of course, MIT Stats and MIT ML to deep learning courses, our modules on Python, predictive modeling, deep learning, and the mini projects that we bring, of course. The capstone project also comes with live support from faculty and industry practitioners, which gives you that industry project experience, right? So when you complete the program, not only do you have a certification, which is in collaboration with one of the best known universities in the world, but it also gives you a lot of hands-on exposure, right, to the kind of work that you'll be doing when you land up in the industry, right? Now, we have another program, which is called the Accelerator Program in Business Analytics and Data Science. Yes. This program is a 9-month program. It's a little bit accelerated as opposed to our 11-month programs, which I talked about one of them right now. And this is for folks who want to get into the business analytics route, right, or that journey. Yes, as I said, three paths, right? One is the junior data scientist to data scientist path, other is to the business analyst path, and a third one is to the kind of data engineer path, right? In some ways, right? This is for folks who are looking for jobs as a business analyst and business analytics and things like that. Yeah. This is not going to be a lot of math, right? It is not going to be a lot of math at all. Yes. But what it will do is it'll give you a lot of sense about the business of data. Yes. What does it take to look at business problems from scratch and analyze them and inference from them, right? Traditionally, all business problems were solved using gut feeling of the managers. Today, that gut feeling is dead, right? It's pretty much, or it's not dead, it's dying very fast, right? And I'm super happy about that because, I taught in multiple MBA schools, but I never got an MBA because I think that most decisions should be taken with data. Not everything, but most of it. So the Accelerator Program, Business Analytics and Data Science, is a 9-month program, including an integrated capstone. 470 hours of learning with 70 plus live sessions. The curriculum, I was very deeply involved in designing this curriculum. So of course I like it very much, but what I do when I design curricula is that I run it by, tons and tons of people who work in the industry as junior data scientists, in data analysts, business analysts, right? People who are actually in those jobs, but also chief data scientists and CXOs and so on, who are or senior managers in data science who hire for those jobs, right? It's very tools centric, right? And business centric. Yes. So a series of tools which you would need to analyze data, depending on what company you'll end up working for, Python, SQL, right? Unless you know how to pull data into SQL, you can never do business analytics. Excel, of course, even now, I would say tons and tons of business analytics work is done in Excel, and Excel has become so much more powerful than when I started using it 20 years back, right? Microsoft Power BI, extremely popular tool, especially given the rise of the Azure framework. Power BI is done exceptionally well in the business analytics community. And Tableau, which is arguably one of the best known tools in data storytelling, right? Taught by faculty and mentors with decades of industry experience. I mean, a lot of my friends and so on land up teaching here, and it's a placement assurance and guaranteed job opportunities. Here's the curriculum, and you'll see the difference between what we saw in IDMA versus what we see here. Right? It's Excel, SQL, visualization, data exploration, storytelling, statistics, obviously, and then decision making. Yes, so it's not math, algos, right? A lot of algorithms, applied algorithms, and so on. It's about, hey, how can I take good business decisions using data, right? So it's a different kind of a course from what we saw there. The highlight of the program, as I said, it teaches you all the critical tools, but it shows you how do you work with data in the business world. We have another program, and this is again the third career path, if you will, which is data science plus data engineering kind of, right? This is in partnership with the University of Chicago. The University of Chicago is arguably one of the top few universities in the world. They have like the largest number of Nobel laureates or close to that. Anyway, I don't remember the exact stats, but again, I mean, they're one of those guys, right? 70 to 90% instructor-led, et cetera, we follow that same module, but the program curriculum you'll see is data science, right? But with a decent amount of push on data warehousing, data engineering, and things like that, right? Which allows you to work with data engineering and allows you to be comfortable with deploying the ML models that you're writing, right? So it has an introduction to cloud. It has practical deep learning, which you can apply. It begins with Git and SQL, right? Because unless you know how to write good quality code and version it well, it's never going to work out. It does an entire course on data warehousing, data engineering, of course, Python, and then there's a lot of intense focus on Python and writing optimized code, Python code, right? The biggest challenge which a lot of folks face in pure data science is that unless they come from a particular type of a background, the kind of Python code that they write, yes, is not production ready, if you will. And that's true for me, right? I mean, as I said, I'm doing it for 2 decades. If you see my code, it's not great. It's mediocre at best. And that's because I'm not a data engineer. I don't write code for deployment. I work with algorithms, and I can build a new algorithm from scratch, right? And I've done that and apply it for a business problem. But I cannot. I have folks who will take that and make it deployable, right? This program kind of covers that, and as many of you know, that there are tons and tons of jobs in data engineering, and that's growing super fast. So people who are interested and who are good coders or want to be even better coders, but also want to do data science at the same time, right? They don't want a full-time data engineering. That's what I want to do with my life. Not that, but a blend of data science and data engineering, which is kind of best of both worlds in some ways. This is for folks like that, right? It's with the University of Chicago with courses on data engineering and Python. We have modules on predictive analytics, practical deep learning, cloud, and projects, and so on. Yeah. So who are these programs for? For learners who wish to do an MIT MicroMasters, which is what, for the IDMA program, you do half of the MIT MicroMasters, right? The accelerator program is for people with interest in data science and its applications from business side. And for those who wish to change their career trajectory into the data science domain, a lot of you guys and other alumni from top institutions work in, let's say, data warehousing, in databases, in database management, and you want to move into the data science world. This is a really nice segue because you're already probably writing code, you're comfortable with SQL, you're probably managing a database, but now you want to do data science, right? This program really, I think, hits the nail for folks like that. All right. So that's what I wanted to talk about. I'm going to stop sharing my screen right now, and I'm going to open this up for questions. I have a few more slides. I'm going to come back to those, but I'd love to hear your questions. Okay. Let's see. There's something in the chat box, not visible. Bhanusri says, will HeroWired sponsor AI projects? Yeah, we don't sponsor AI projects. We get industry partners to for our students to do their projects. Yes. So our projects are with industry partners. Industry partners would come and give us projects, and our students will work on them. Yes. All right. Q&A. Are you going to allow the students to do mini projects in Hero Group companies? Potentially, but not necessarily, but potentially, sure. I mean, I know that in our finance programs, we've had students work with one of the family offices for the Hero Group. Yes. Okay. Whom to approach? Oh, no, Ravi, as I said, your project comes right at the end of the program. And which firm you would work for or which industry partner would work for would depend on the projects that we have at that point. We have a historical array of projects where students have worked on, and you can go to the site and see, like traditionally, what are the projects that our students have worked on. There may be, as I said, nothing stopping other Hero Group companies to give hero-wired students projects, but it's not something that we promise right away, saying that, hey, you're going to work in a Hero Group project or a Hero Motorcorp project or whatever. That's not something we can say right now. Based on at that point what projects we get, we will ensure that you get stuff that you get to learn things, as opposed to looking just at the brand name, right? We'll ensure that more than anything else. Okay. All right. Any other questions about careers in data science, ML, and artificial intelligence? Because there's a lot going on in terms of career. As I said, over the past few months, I've looked at hundreds and thousands of job listings, and I haven't looked at it. I have had an algorithm look at it actually to pick up the most important things and use that in a variety of ways. So if you have any questions about careers in ML, AI, data science, etc., I'll be more than happy to answer. Any questions? Any questions, comments, anything that you want to know more about?
So guys, do we have any other questions? I think one of the attendees has raised their hand. Soumya, could you please type your question?
Yeah, please go ahead. Please go ahead. Anybody, just go to the
Q&A. We have a question
section.
from Vikas. If you could just check the Q&A box.
All right. Yes, we have a question from Vikas. Is data structures and algorithms required for ML? Fantastic question. A little bit, yes. And I'll tell you where. More than anything else, we see that a lot of the data structures and algorithms it's super common to ask DSA questions in interviews. Okay, it's like, if I take a ML AI interview, a data science interview, I would, and it's not just me, a lot of people who come from econometrics, statistics, mathematics background, who came from, because when we started, we didn't have these certifications, right? We had to kind of, find our way. Yes. In the past 20 years, the industry got created, right? It wasn't there before. So some of us in the industry, in our age, some of us came from computer science engineering. Some of us came from the management side. I came from the econometrics, statistics, right? That's what I did for a living. So if you meet someone like me in an interview on the other side, I would ask you questions about assumptions, statistical models. I'd say, oh, what is heteroscedasticity, right? What are the 6 assumptions of linear regression, right? I mean, these are the kind of questions. Is this something that you use every day in your job? You probably don't, but that's something that I would ask, right? Similarly, if you find a data science manager who's interviewing you, who comes from a computer science background, a core technology background, they'll end up asking questions about data structures and algorithms. So, and it kind of gives you a lot of the basic information about some of the things that you will be doing, right? I mean, especially, gradient descent and things like that, right? How does the gradient descent algorithm work and so on? So if you know it, great. If you're not an expert, no worries. The amount of gradient descent or algorithms that you would need for interviews or to learn the more advanced algorithms, we'll teach you in the programs. Yes, depending on the program that you're in. Teja says, okay, how is the overall job market in India for AI/ML? Well, overall, as I said, I've been analyzing this data again, because one of the things that I did or I wanted to do was, anecdotally, I had a lot of evidence from my friends who are hiring all the time, who keep telling me, hey, kind of, give me some of your best students, right? And in my consulting firm, I'm hiring right now as well, right? So all of us are hiring. But to me, that's always anecdotal information, that's small data. right? And I never trust small data. I need, if I can have big data or larger data sets, I will. So as I said, I've been looking at hundreds and thousands of job postings from India and across the world. There's an enormous amount of demand and there is not enough supply, right? So the demand is high and the supply is low. And if you have studied economics 101, you I'm sure know what happens when small demand, small supply, a lot of demand. You know what happens to anything, right? If something is in short supply and there's a lot of demand for it, what happens? Simple, prices go up, right? So, and that's that's what's happening. If you're a hiring manager, it's a tough time. I mean, despite the, I don't call it the tech winter. My colleague wrote an article about this in the Indian Express because everybody is like, oh, tech winter, tech winter. It's not the tech winter. I think it's the tech rationalization, right? We call it the tech rationalization in my firm. We don't call it the tech winter. It's just that because of the valuation boom and the easy money and the zero interest rate policy, people were getting salaries which were unsustainable. It made no sense. And they were not producing a lot of real things with that kind of salary. So the market will correct itself when that happens. That is understandable. So I'm not worried about all of that at all, because even now, the MLAI marketplace is extremely hot. And as I said, I'm hiring right now. Right? So, and I run a very small company. Like my friends who run larger companies, they're hiring like crazy. So the job market's great. I mean, I don't see any. Pankaj has a question. Can you give some examples of how ML is being applied in some Indian companies and what 4 to 5 year experienced person can contribute that? So 2 questions, both extremely valuable questions. When I started my firm, exactly a decade back, we had pretty much zero revenues coming from Indian clients. Today, that amount is more than 50%, about 50%. Yes, that's the change. And while very large analytics data science companies may not work a lot with Indian clients because of rates and this and that, I'm not worried about that. But tons and tons of Indian companies, not just startups, but traditional corporations, right? Back in 2013, 14, I did a project with a company, an FMCG, Indian FMCG company, which makes one of the most popular brands of hair oil. Okay. You would never think that a company like that would be doing data science. You just wouldn't think. Their persona versus data science, it's like, what? And not today, 10 years ago. Yes. And to me, at least, was a pivotal moment. I realized that not just some startups, not just the guys who are making electric vehicles, and not just, some tech companies and e-commerce firms. Every e-commerce firm in India uses data science, right? Of course, I mean, you name any one of them, obviously everybody uses data science, right? But even traditional corporations, I have taught 5-day sessions in person to the largest, one of the largest metals company in the world. I've gone to their headquarters in Udaipur, and I spent 5 days with them teaching their people some of them came from plants, from plant managers, teaching them data science, right? So yeah, and this is a very Indian company, extremely Indian company, right? So traditional Indian companies have started using machine learning, started using data science, started using artificial intelligence, and the absorption rate is enormous, right? They are hiring, they are building teams like that. Yes. The second part of your question, Pankaj, says, what does a 4 or 5 year experienced person contribute to that? You see, the more experience you have, and 4 or 5 is not a lot, but the more experience you have in a particular domain, and this is a standard question that I get asked by everybody, that, hey, I have 10 years of experience, can I move to data science, right? I've been doing 12 years of marketing, can I do data science today? I'll be super honest, okay? If you're doing marketing for 12 years, can you do data science today? Answer is yes, but it's not going to be as easy to break into the industry as a fresher, because you won't work for that kind of money as a fresher. With a fresher or somebody with 3 years and 2 years of experience, I can take a risk when I'm hiring them. I can say, oh, you know what? Let's try him out. Let's try her out. If it doesn't work out, whatever. I mean, we'll teach them something. We'll make them do something else. It's not a lot of money. But if you already have 12 years of experience, you're not going to come into a company with that kind of salary. You'll have a certain kind of expectations. So if you have more experience, the trick is, and I have seen so many of my students move laterally. I've had students who are medical doctors who are doing data science today. I've taught 4 doctors till date, right, in the last decade. And they're doing very, very well, all of them. The trick is play to your strengths. If you're an HR professional and you learn data science, don't go out there to do risk analytics. Try to go and do HR analytics, because that's where your domain knowledge will be super important. If you work in an e-commerce firm's operations, don't try to do data science and say that, oh, you know what, I'm going to work on driverless cars. Try to do supply chain analytics, because there your operations working for an e-commerce company will be actually, it will be given a lot of weight by someone like himself. Yes. So play to your strengths if you have a lot of experience or some experience. And as I said, the supply-demand imbalance ensures that there's lateral hiring going on continually. Nadian Selvam has a question. How important is domain-specific knowledge? People working on specific domain, networking, how can they use their strength and apply? As I said, I mean, if you're working in any domain, right? Think about, hey, you work in networking, and I know which kind of networking you're talking about, but if you're talking about networks, right? You're working, every telecom company I know of is getting people trained in data science or hiring data scientists, each one of them, right? I don't know any who's not, right? And not just direct telcos, right? Not just the Airtels and the Vodafones of the world, the Tata Skies of the world, what you name it, right? Each one of them is hiring someone like that, right? So if you have a domain knowledge already, add data science to it and try to move within the same organization if possible, or a related organization where your pre-knowledge would have a lot of weight. Like you're doing supply chain for 5 years, let's say, right? You do data science, you apply to supply chain analytics jobs in supply chain analytics companies. You go to a delivery, you go to a smart cube, which works with like probably 50 of the top 100 supply chain companies in the world, or whatever, right? I mean, I'm just throwing examples here, but you play to your strengths, and there are enough jobs in each one of these industries. All right, Teja, how do you hire? What are the skill sets do you look into? If I do IDMA, will I be in a position to get hired by you or other friends of yours? I'll tell you what I look for, and it'll depend on the role that I am hiring for, okay? And will the IDMA prepare a student for that? For certain roles, absolutely, if they work hard. It's very simple, right? I run a very small organization, so I can hire very carefully, right? And so what do I look for when I hire somebody who's going to do core ML AI kind of things, right? I look for a little bit of mathematics, right? Because that's the type of company I run and the kind of work that I do, right? If I'm looking for someone in ML AI, I'll look for a little bit of math. I will look for someone who can translate sentences into algorithms. That's a very common thing that I ask in interviews. I would just throw a random sentence at a student, or in an interview, somebody I'm trying to hire, and I say, can you convert this to a formula? Simple formula. And it'll be a simple statement. It's not going to be something outrageous. I'm not trying to trick you. I'm trying to give you a job, because I also need somebody to do that job, right? That's why I'm interviewing someone. If I am hiring for a data engineer, I won't do those interviews to begin with. My CTO would do it. But look for very, very strong Python coding skills, right? Like right now, we are hiring to be the junior data engineers, right? Very solid Python coding skills. And our client is fully on Python. So, people who have worked with data, like real data and messy data, work with cleaning it up. Sometimes when we hire data engineers, they should have deployment experience. Again, those interviews I do not do, but I try to see that whether the person has the right attitude to work for a company where there's a lot of learning. Yes. And for a business analyst role, I'm extremely open. Our best business analyst, who now actually does a lot of machine learning, right? She's fantastic. She comes with a BBA background. Right? So if somebody says that, hey, nobody coming from a non-tech background, they cannot do data science, they might not be able to do it immediately. They can start off as a business analyst, like my colleague did. She's doing fantastically well. But BBA background, did a 1-year certificate program, and moved into, and we hired her. We hired her as an intern. She started off 6 months internship and then been more than 2 years. Yeah. So, all right, Nanda Kumar has Palani, right? Nanda Kumar Palani has a question: what is the impact of ChatGPT like framework on AI/ML jobs? A lot of impact. It's going to be great. It's going to be very, very, very similar to Google in some ways, right? It's just going to make it will be a little easier for searching things. The problem with ChatGPT, okay, and this is for everybody. If you know about ChatGPT, this is for everyone. Two huge problems. One is we were interviewing a bunch of kids the other day, right? So we gave them a coding test, and 5 out of 5 had made the same mistake in the coding test. Okay, and they're sitting in different parts of the country. All right, they don't know each other. They're in different campuses, different people. I run an organization which is remote first, right? So they're all over the country. I don't care where you're from. Yes, we gave like 10 questions. 5 people we were into, answered, sent back those answer sheets in a day, and each 5 of them made the same mistake in the same question. So when we pushed one of them a little bit, they said, hey, you know what? ChatGPT gave us this answer, right? ChatGPT gives you an answer. ChatGPT never gives you the logic behind the answer, right? The second problem with ChatGPT, and which is what scares me, is that in Google or any search engine, it takes you to the source. ChatGPT is a summarizer. Basically, it's a tokenizer. It's a summarizer, right? It's not intelligent. If somebody says ChatGPT is intelligent, they don't understand what intelligence is. It's a summarizer, very good summarizer, right? Quite good, actually. So ChatGPT will summarize from any source that it gets its hands on. It's not vetted by anybody. When I look for a fact, I ensure that the link that I'm clicking on in Google is a legitimate source, right? Like, I'd go to a proper legitimate source. I'd get my news from a legitimate source. I don't get my news from WhatsApp, right? There are people who do, unfortunately, but I don't, right? Anybody with half a brain would not. Yes. The point is that with ChatGPT or some such, you wouldn't know what the underlying source is. And that, to me, is the biggest problem with ChatGPT and the impact of ChatGPT. But of course, it's going to be super helpful. I don't use it, but I see no reason why not to use it. Okay. How do you hire? So I answered that question already. Anonymous attendee says, I've already enrolled for the accelerated for business analytics. More interested in statistical modeling. I've completed MTech in industrial mathematics. Is it possible to apply for data scientist jobs? The accelerated program is in business analytics and data science. Yes. So yes, you can apply for data science jobs. If you are more mathematically inclined, okay, and comfortable, then you should talk to your, and you're sure that, take a look at what they teach at the IDMA, or take a look at what is being taught at the University of Chicago program. Right, because they're mathematically or technically, they're more more challenging in some ways. Yes. So because in the business analytics program as well, the accelerator program, there is statistics, there is predictive modeling. Right. As I said, I know that it's printed in my head because I designed most of that curriculum. So it's there. Nothing stops you from applying for data scientist jobs. Is the rigor like IDMA? Mathematical rigor? No. Does it teach you a lot of extremely useful tools? Absolutely. Does it allow you to do predictive modeling? Totally. So yes, you can apply for data science jobs, but again, if you do think that your strength is on the mathematical side, then you might want to think about it. Absolutely. Yeah. And you have the cred, you have an tech, so that's good cred to have. Yes. Okay. All right. Let's see. On the example of the hair oil company, what was the problem they faced, and how did ML solve it? It was multiple problems, but they were just trying to figure out demand. Okay. And we worked on two ways of triangulating to demand, because they wanted it short term, which a lot of ML models, and even not necessarily ML models, as long as you have a large enough data set, your time series, right? Anything that's a forecasting tool can do very well, right? So we use that but they also wanted long-term predictions, right? Where what we did was we did a very top-down approach at the state level and the country level, and we made GDP predictions, and then figured out that what is the relationship between GDP growth rate and FMCG sales growth rate, and then how that is going to impact the top line of the company. We probably got a bit lucky, but back in 2013, we made a prediction successfully that the GDP growth rate, which was dipping, is going to turn around in 2014-15. That, as an organization, as I said, I run a small company, but that kind of really made us very popular among some people, because we made that prediction and actually the GDP did turn around and FMCG sales did turn around. So maybe we just got lucky, or maybe the mathematical model worked very well. But yeah, it was just a pure what are we selling today? How can we sell more? Where's the market going as a whole? But where is our business going to go? That kind of problem. Yeah. But sales problems have been solved in different ways based on, we have worked with marketing funnels. We did a fantastic project with a German travel agent on optimizing their marketing and sales funnel, right? Where we used a couple of models which nobody usually uses, but it worked out very well because we had a limited amount of data, right? Because people would come and fill a web form, which is very short, right? And using that data for the past decade, we wanted to make predictions of people who fill up the web form in a certain way. Are they going to actually buy a tour package or not, right? So we were extremely creative. I think that was one of our data scientists is fantastic with coming up with all sorts of weird algorithms. We nailed that project really big time. Okay, all right, let's see, what do we have? Prabhakaran has a question. I'm a programmer. Can I shift to data science expecting to stay in my comfort zone? Or will the landscape change considerably to change the nature of work I'm used to? Look, if you are already a programmer, right, the University of Chicago program is probably absolutely a great fit for you. Right? You can do data science where data science meets data engineering and deployment, right? As I said, if you want to do data science or you want to do a lot of algorithms and stuff, there you will have to go very much out of your comfort zone, right? But if you are doing data science where, and this whole data engineering, data science, the demand, our CTO is an ex-Goldman Sachs guy. He worked and then spent a decade at Thomson Reuters before that. I mean, having someone like that in your group, right, just makes, it makes all the difference, seriously. That someone who is an incredible programmer, hardcore, can sit and write really high quality code, learns the data engineering aspects of it, and then once because the model building part, right? If you think about just writing a model in Python without knowing anything, right? Don't think about the the amount of brain work that goes behind the business problem and this and that. You just look at Python code for writing a model to run a complex support vector machine. A support vector machine is a fairly complicated algorithm. It's a 4-line code, right? you split the data into train and test. You fit a model, and you predict a model from that model. Dot fit, dot predict. 4 lines of code. I can teach that to a 10th grade student. That's nothing. Unless you understand the nuances of modeling, or the business aspect of it, or the statistical aspects of it, or the programming and deployment aspects of it, you won't have a job. It's simple. Because Google's AutoML can today look at a bunch of data and try out every algorithm out there. It's just going to just try it out, brute force method, right? Try out all the algorithms out there and say, hey, this is the one with which gives you the least number of errors or the best accuracy. So what will you do if Google's AutoML does that? But then that's a Kaggle contest is not doing machine learning in real life. Don't get me wrong, I love Kaggle contests. I use data from Kaggle to train my students sometimes, but that's not the kind of data that you will use in real life. That's too clean. Doesn't work like that. So if you're a programmer who wants to do data science, think about the Chicago program. It's a fantastic blend of data engineering and data science. You will be able to live within your comfort zone and and will be able to do really cool things. Yes. All right. Venkatesh has a question. With so many MOOCs, IITM, BSc Data Science, programs, how should one take call? What is a unique offering in the data science training industry? Hey, Venkatesh, you know what? I mean, I can answer that question, but as you know, I'll be very biased, right? I work closely in making some of these programs up from scratch, right? So the IDMA program, I closely work with the Wired and the MIT teams when we built that out. Same with the business analytics and data science program. Look for programs. MOOCs are great. MOOCs have like 2% completion rates as well, or 1%, or less than that. And some Coursera has like less than 1% completion rate, if I'm not mistaken. So nothing against MOOCs, trust me. But over the years, I have enrolled in like probably a few thousand courses in MOOCs, and I have completed only one of them and got a certificate. It's a course on comic books taught by Stan Lee before he died. Yeah, they have had a course. There's a course on edX on superheroes. That's the only course that I've completed in the last 8 years or 9 years that MOOCs have been around, and I've been a very early adopter of MOOCs from Andy New's first course on machine learning. My brother told me that, hey, Stanford's giving free courses, and this was what, back in 2011, 10, 11, when Coursera just started with 2 courses. Right, and one of them was Andrew New's machine learning course. Right, I enrolled in hundreds of them. I think I've not completed. I've completed one. So MOOCs are great. Don't get me wrong. I would say get programs where the connect to the industry is really good. Yes, where you get to work with real life problems, real data, see the junk and the pain that a machine learning engineer goes through. Right, as opposed to working on Kaggle contests. And don't get me wrong, again, Kaggle contests are great, right? Good places to learn. But that's not what you will see in real life when you go working with data. When you're trying to work with an algorithm, it won't look like that, like what you expect the data to look like or the algorithm you want to use. Sometimes, or most often, life doesn't give you big data. I keep telling my students, life doesn't give you big data. Life mostly gives you small data. What do you do with small data? What sort of assumption testing do you need? Right? So there's a lot of challenge between doing something which is looks really cool on your resume versus actually dealing with real life problems. And that's, I think, one thing that Wired has done well. That's why I like these courses. The people who teach are folks who have dealt with junk data, dealt with the real life problems, and that's what you should look for in a course. So, people who design the course, people who are teaching in the course, they should have that experience more than anything else. All right, okay. I think we are a little over time.
Yeah, a little bit. So guys, any other questions from anyone? Yeah, first of all, Dipiman, thank you for providing a wonderful session, right? I think it was a very interesting one. And guys, thank you everyone for being a lovely audience. And I hope we are able to help you out with all your queries and doubts around the career pathing that is there in artificial intelligence, right? And we hope to see you again in another exciting webinar. Thank you so much. Thank you, Dipiman.
All right. Thanks, Soumya. Thanks, everyone. Thanks for attending this.